I saw Volume pop up on Steam's recently released list, and it instantly caught my eye. The name told me everything about it.
Ooh, Volume, that must be a stealth game. Click.
Volume drops you into a sci-fi version of London where you can find Star Trek-like holodecks, sentient AI, and a dictatorship similar to the movie V for Vendetta. In this story, you play Robert Loxley, a young man who's out to make a difference.
By robbing people. Robbing, Robert. Robbing.
Anyway, how's he going to do this robbing? Well, by hacking into rich people's stuff and stealing it from them in a virtual environment that is supposed to be their house? Or maybe it's like a visual representation of their database?
To be honest, I have no idea what you're doing, but it's something good to help the people of London.
While you run around these environments, you are live streaming your deeds to the people of London to inspire and show them how to take back the power. That's the basic gist of what's going on here, and if it sounds like a cliche, that's because it is.
Where one man has the power to inspire a nation. Yeah, it's been done.
What's more interesting than the overall story is the characters' interactions, which are well written and definitely entertaining. There are a few side characters, but the three main are Robert himself, Alan, the AI device Rob is using to
rob people,
and Guy Gisborne, just referred to as Gisborne in the game. The interactions between these characters is where the game's story becomes somewhat compelling, although it never really reaches the magnitude it wants to.
There are no shortcuts, no matter what the idle or weak-willed may tell you. This boy will be found.
Unfortunately, a lot of these interactions fall flat because of the voice acting, which for the most part is good, except for the main character, Rob.
For voice actors, we have Charlie McDonnell playing Rob, Danny Wallace as Alan, and
Andy Serkis as Gisborne?
How did Andy freaking Gollum Monkey Circus end up in this indie game?
Who do you know, Mike Bithell? He's the guy who made the game. Who do you know?
Anyways, yeah, the character of Gisborne, played by Andy freaking Gollum Monkey Circus, is great as the antagonist of the story. Alan, played by Danny Wallace, is also a very good performance, playing the wisecracking yet serious when he needs to be sidekick to Rob.
Yes, but he has guns. Those awesome guns I was talking about earlier.
But then that leaves Rob, doesn't it?
Rob just doesn't do it for me. He has no emotional range and he just stays at awkward the whole game.
And you're not running.
Right now, I just need to get through these last few simulations.
Maybe he wouldn't have stood out so much if all the voice actors in the game were mediocre, but when going up against the other I would call great performances, it's glaring.
I'll have my captain turn off the lights personally.
We won't stop.
You will.
No.
Oh, there's also a cameo from Jim Sterling of the Jimquisition web series. He only pops up in one scene, but when he did, I was like, hey, I know you. I know that voice.
Who is Loxley? I've been watching his stream along with the rest of you.
Overall, the story is just a simple, seen-it-before tale that helps frame what the game really shines at. It's gameplay.
I can't run, Gisborne. I can't stop this. We have...
Then I will.
What?
This game is clearly inspired by Metal Gear Solid, and nobody is surprised by that.
More specifically, the VR missions in the first game, where it would create a virtual environment for you to practice with the game's mechanics. Volume handles very similar to Metal Gear Solid 1 with its top-down camera, but with several added features, making this one of the most complex stealth games I've played. You can walk, lean against walls, easily round corners, whistle, hide in closets, hide under the floor, hide in shadows, flip over walls, set up traps, disable enemies, create clones, use disguises, it goes on.
Point is, there's a lot of different elements in this game that keeps it interesting.
I was surprised how the game kept throwing new elements at me fairly late into the game. There are 100 single-player missions in Volume, and up until like 85, the game was still giving me new abilities to play with. Same with enemy types. There are different kinds from basic nearsighted enemies to sniper enemies with longer ranges, and even melee attackers. As you can see, everything is clearly laid out for you when it comes to the enemies. Unlike other stealth games where enemies' lines of sight need to be learned from trial and error, Volume shows you specifically where an enemy can see.
So if you get seen, there's no excuse. You messed up, and there's something comforting in that. But
as I was playing this game, I had to remind myself I was trying to sneak around. Because of the way the game is laid out, it started to feel more like a puzzle game. One of those indie games where each level is a new challenge, like Super Meat Boy or,
I can't think of anything right now, but you know what I mean.
Each level in Volume... Braid, that's another example. Oh, Portal? Now they're coming to me, I got it. Each level in Volume felt like a challenge, which it was supposed to be, but as the game went on, I forgot I was playing a stealth game. The levels start out simple enough with just basic sneaking around enemy patterns, but then new things are added like the abilities I mentioned earlier. These abilities, whether they be a cloak or disguise or trap cable thing, are all picked up in each level and you can only carry one at a time. So with each level being designed to use a few specific abilities, it feels like each level is a designed puzzle and not a real environment.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but go in expecting a puzzle game based around stealth and not a pure stealth experience.
With that being said, there are moments that make you feel like a badass when you master the game's mechanics, although you can become reliant on some tricks. You start to learn most AI can be tricked by going around a few corners, and luckily the game's later level design accounts for that. Later in the game, trip lasers are also introduced, which I personally feel slow down the pace of the game.
In a level with too many lasers, you find a note on the floor that says, "Can you ever have too many lasers?" Yeah, you can.
Everything else in the game can be taken as slowly or as quickly as the player wants, but these lasers make you stop and wait, which seems counter to the design of everything else. Luckily, after that level, they are used much more sparingly than I thought they were going to be, but still.
Oh, also those notes I mentioned can be found all over the game.
Some are messages from Alan, wink, but read more like notes from the game's designers, which are funny little quips. But others can be notes exploring the game's world and characters.
I've never been a fan of picking up letters or journals in a game, and maybe I'm an uneducated fool, but I want to play the game.
I look at these things like expanded lore, like when a movie has books to expand the universe. People say, well, in the book they explain. No, I don't care. If it's not in the main story, that's bad storytelling. Anyways, also on the idea of slowing down the gameplay, another thing that bugged me was after dying, you need to wait for abilities to recharge. You can consider this a punishment for dying, but it left me spinning in circles for like 10 seconds every time I died.
But for the most part, the game feels tight. I never found myself going, what the fuck, how did I die? I could plainly see that I messed up. That's the best segue I can come up with for visuals.
Volume, as mentioned, looks like Metal Gear Solid's VR missions, mixed with Deus Ex Human Revolution's style.
Everything explodes into triangular polygons, and the environment can move when you whistle. See? And also,
there are only a few cutscenes in the game at the beginning and end, and they look weirdly pixelated and compressed, but I would have rather them been played out in the game's engine, since any detail you get from pre-rendered scenes are pointless because everyone's wearing masks.
But since there's only a couple, it doesn't really bother me that much.
Music in the game fits the sneaking stealth gameplay very well, taking obvious cues from Metal Gear Solid again. In fact, there are even nods to Metal Gear Solid in the game itself.
Rob?
One part of the music that made me laugh when I first heard it was the being spotted music that plays whenever an enemy sees you.
The music goes from calm, sneaking music to something epic with choirs from like Lord of the Rings.
It's so over the top, and is another reason I say the game doesn't hit the epicness it wants to. Also with the game's sound, I wish some sound effects were more punchy like the guns. When enemies spot you, they will eventually shoot and kill you, but you would never know it because there's barely any sound.
Give me something good, punchy, shoot me, damn it! Another cool feature is the game's built-in level editor, allowing you to create whatever your heart desires, as long as it's in a VR room thing.
You have all the same tools the designers had, and can upload them for others to play, which can really give this game some longevity after the 100 main missions.
Look, I made the first level in Metal Gear Solid 1. Volume is a lot of fun when it comes to playing it.
When you can just focus on its gameplay and ignore the story, it's great. It wants to be this grand epic, but fails to reach that level despite some good voice performances. If you're a fan of stealth games, you should definitely give Volume a go. And if you're more into level-based puzzlers, you might also find something to enjoy.
If you like what you see, give it a shot, but Volume is definitely for me. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed my first review type thing in this format. I wanted to practice on a smaller game before we really hit some of the big titles, but let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below, and also hit that like button if you want to help out the show, and subscribe to the channel if you're not. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.